So, 2026. It feels like it's just around the corner, right? But it's a year that's being shaped by this one massive, all-consuming force, artificial intelligence. The question is, what will it actually look like? We're about to dive into the two competing visions for 2026, what the AI itself predicts, and then the messy, complicated reality when those predictions hit the ground. Here's how we're going to break it all down. First up, we'll see what the AI models themselves think is coming. Then we'll get into something called the Great Adaptation and all the growing pains that come with it. We're talking regulation, the workplace, and even innovation itself. And don't worry, we'll wrap it all up with a practical playbook for how you can navigate the year ahead. To really try and get a handle on 2026, researchers at SiteGuarding did something pretty brilliant. They went straight to the source. They asked the very technology that's shaping our future to predict it. So that's where we're starting. We're going to look right into the crystal ball that AI has made for itself. Okay, so what actually happens when you ask ChatGPT, Claude, DeepSeek, and a bunch of others to forecast the year 2026? Well, you get a picture that's actually pretty consistent. This is the consensus forecast, straight from the machines. So right across the board, all these different models kind of agree on the big stuff. They're seeing modest economic growth, somewhere around 3%, a huge speed up in green energy, and get this, they even predict tighter rules for AI itself. But it's not all rosy. They also paint this picture of a world that's really under stress, with ongoing geopolitical tensions, more extreme weather, and a job market that's about to be totally reshaped by automation. And here's really the key thing to understand. The AIs are pretty good at agreeing on the general direction, the what. The slower growth, the green energy, the new rules. But where they all start to disagree is on the wild cards. These are those low-probability, high-impact events. Some people call them black swans. Things like a major war, a sudden financial crash, or a totally unexpected AI breakthrough. It just goes to show you the limits of prediction, right? They can see the trends, but the big shocks, well, that's still anyone's guess. So, if the AI predictions tell us what's coming, the really big question is how it's all going to happen. What happens when these clean, neat, data-driven forecasts slam into the messy, unpredictable world of actual human beings? Well, one source calls this the Great Adaptation. It's that moment when all the AI hype meets the cold, hard reality of actually getting it to work. And our first big reality check? Regulation. Pretty much everyone agrees that AI needs some rules of the road. But trying to write those rules while the technology is evolving at light speed, well, it's created this chaotic, desperate scramble for standards. And you can see it playing out in Europe right now. This timeline just says it all. Look at this. The original deadline for companies to comply with the EU's high-risk AI rules is August 2nd, 2026. Okay. Makes sense. But the technical standards, the documents that explain how you're supposed to comply, they're not expected to even show up until the end of 2026. It is a classic case of the cart coming way, way before the horse. And this leaves thousands and thousands of businesses asking this one very simple, very fundamental question. It's not just some legal puzzle. For a lot of companies, it's an existential crisis. How do you innovate without accidentally breaking rules that haven't even been fully written yet? All this uncertainty is just a massive brake on progress. Now, while all the companies are trying to figure out the regulations, workers on the ground are facing a whole different kind of growing pain. The second major friction point here is the human cost of all this adaptation, where the promise of efficiency is creating new kinds of fear, tension, and outright conflict in the workplace. This quote from Lewis, a warehouse worker at Amazon, just cuts right to the heart of it. For so many people, the experience of being managed by an algorithm, where every single second, every movement is tracked and optimized, it just feels dehumanizing. It's not even about losing your job anymore. It's about the quality of the job itself and the toll it takes on you. And a scale here is just immense. A UCLA report found that in California alone, 4.5 million workers are in jobs that are at high risk of being lost to automation. And get this, more than half of those workers are Latino. This isn't some far-off futuristic threat. For millions of people, it is a clear and present danger, right now. So what's the response? Well, organized labor is mobilizing. For them, a lot of this new tech isn't really that revolutionary. They see it as just a more efficient, high-tech way to do surveillance and control. As the California Labor Federation president Lorena Gonzalez puts it, it's the old boss with new tools.
and they are fighting tooth and nail to get a say in how those tools get used.
So, on top of the challenges with regulation and what's happening in the workplace, there's a third reality check. And honestly, this might be the most surprising one of all. It's about innovation itself. Because despite all the breathless headlines and the billions of dollars being poured in, a huge number of AI projects are quietly and spectacularly failing. It's being called the 95% problem. Yeah, just let that number sink in for a second. 95%. A landmark study from MIT found that a staggering 95% of corporate generative AI pilots deliver zero measurable business value. It's just a shocking disconnect between the hype we all hear about and the actual return on investment. So why? Why is this happening? Well, it really boils down to three big mistakes. First, companies are just solving the wrong problems. They're chasing cool tech instead of fixing real business needs. Second, they totally misunderstand savings. They think saving a few minutes on a task is the same thing as eliminating an entire job. It's not. And third, they just completely overlook the enormous cost, both financially and to their reputation, when the AI inevitably messes. Okay, so we have the AI's clean forecast on one side and this messy human reality on the other. How on earth do we navigate this? Well, that brings us to our final act, a practical playbook for governments, for businesses, and for you. For governments, the name of the game is resilience. They need to be building up financial buffers to handle those wildcard shocks we talked about. They need to be speeding up grid upgrades for the energy transition, getting serious about AI safety, and maybe most importantly, investing big in retraining programs to help workers adapt. For businesses, the message is really simple. Get proactive. That means making your supply chains tougher against global shocks. It means building strong AI governance and risk assessment right now so you don't become part of that 95% failure statistic. The really smart companies, they're already investing in reskilling their people and designing totally new jobs where humans and AI actually work together. And what about for you as an individual? Well, the advice here is twofold. First, build your own personal resilience. Diversify your assets. Have that emergency fund ready. Second, future-proof your career. And you do that by focusing on the skills that AI just can't replicate. Your critical judgment, your strategic oversight, and your deep human expertise in whatever it is you do. And hey, don't be afraid to demand a voice in how this tech gets used. So that brings us right back to where we started. Will 2026 be a year of clean, intelligent adaptation, or is it going to be a year of messy, expensive mistakes? The consensus seems to be that the outcome isn't written in silicon. It's going to be determined by the human choices we all make, starting right now as we try to navigate the messy reality of this incredibly powerful new tech.